This is a car Kia says will change perceptions of its brand. It's called the EV9 and it's due in Australia late in 2023. It's a large SUV, or technically an upper large SUV, and it promises to seat 7 people in comfort. And it also does a pretty good job at turning heads.
The EV9 is a new model for Kia, part of the expanding EV sub-brand that started with the EV6 and will soon include a range of models. It's a large SUV, technically an upper large SUV, and comes with 7 seats across 3 rows. Pricing is yet to be announced, but word on the street is that it'll kick off close to $100,000 and will easily head north of that once you've got dual motors and plenty of fruit. There's no natural rival to it, at least in the EV space, but it could find itself competing with everything from the Hyundai Palisade and Toyota Kluger, Toyota LandCruiser, and even the upcoming Mazda CX-90.
The EV9 is available with 2 drivetrain configurations. Not that you're going to see any of that by popping the bonnet here. It's all hidden underneath the car. The base car comes with a rear-wheel drive single motor system, 160 kilowatts, 350 newton meters. Or you can get a bigger battery pack for the long range version. Same electric motor, just makes 10 kilowatts less, so 150 kilowatts, 350 newton meters. That actually makes it slightly slower to 100 kilometers an hour, all because not only you're down on power, but you're also carrying around more weight in the battery pack. You step up to the dual motor versions, and obviously you get an extra motor up front here, so giving you that all-wheel drive system. It then also increases the outputs, 283 kilowatts, 600 newton meters. And you can actually step those outputs up through the Kia Connect system, over-the-air software updates, and you can get up to 700 newton meters. And that lowers the 0 to 100 time from 6 seconds down to 5.3. The EV9 to some extent represents the evolution of Kia design. It's really big and it's also got a sort of boldness and cleanliness to it that we really haven't seen a whole lot from this brand. In some ways I wouldn't be surprised to see another badge on here, Land Rover, Range Rover, something like that, and that is no bad thing. It really does have that sort of visual impact. It's also designed from the ground up as an EV, so everything is placed in the optimal position. Electric motors at either end, for example, battery pack lining the floor, and a really long wheelbase. Now that's important for interior space, which I'll get to later on. The lines, the finishes, all nice and clean, so you haven't got a lot of this busyness that some brands have been doing lately. Things like the door handles, nice and clean. Then once you come around the back of the car, this nice sweep of the window line kicking up at the back. And at the rear, to some extent it's about what's not here. It's nice and clean. Instead you've got these powerful lines that sort of reinforce things like the hips over the back of the car and extend that visual width. Inside, that whole bold and clean theme continues. You've got a big broad dash, nice big chunky center console with cup holders, wireless phone charging. Not a whole lot of space though in terms of storage. Like, this thing's really shallow, so for storage space you've either got to look way down here, or when we get into the back, it's actually really deep underneath. So there's heaps of space under there for those in the back to store stuff. Loads of room, loads of headroom, loads of knee room, so no shortage of space up front, and the visibility is really good as well.
The dash is broad and functional, and it incorporates physical buttons as well as others embedded within the wood look trim. Plus, it's all about sustainable materials. The stuff that looks like leather isn't, and there are modern textures mixed with classic wood.
Of course, there's no shortage of pixels either. You've got a big 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster, another 12.3-inch central touchscreen, and in between them is this 5-inch display that just looks after your main ventilation controls. Now, the EV9 also gets over-the-air software functionality, so you can update and tweak things along the way. And Kia's also offering various subscriptions that you can add to the car, add extra features as you go along. The EV9's got a high-ish floor, but it's completely flat, so you've got plenty of foot space there. Loads of knee room as well in this middle row, and the seat, again, that broad cabin makes sure that you can fit 3 people across here pretty easily. Getting into the 3rd row, you've got to press one button, it flips the seats forward. Once you're back there, again, there's acres of headroom, absolutely loads, but you're going to have to trade off with knee room with the people in the middle row. So you can slide this seat forward, sort that one out. Keeping gadgets topped up, not an issue. You've got USB-C ports all around the cabin, both in the 3rd row and the 2nd row. Separate air conditioning controls and also air vents throughout the roof. So both the 2nd and 3rd rows get fresh air. The EV9 is a big car, and you certainly feel that from behind the wheel. But it's quiet, it's comfortable, and it does that effortlessness that EVs do so well. You hit the throttle, something happens, and it does it all pretty easily.
The car we're driving has the most power that an EV9 produces, at least until the GT model arrives around 2025. And there is no shortage of thrust. Push the plus pedal and it surges away nicely. Again, you feel that weight, but the torque helps make light work of it.
The car I'm in is riding on 21-inch wheels. Now that's the biggest you can get for an EV9. You can also get 19s and 20s. So clearly these are more focused towards, I guess, the dynamic side of driving. And you get that when you tip into a corner. You can feel it's got a fair bit of grip. It's 285mm wide tyres, so a lot of rubber on the road. It's also pretty quiet, whether it's at suburban speeds where you pretty much hear nothing, or even on a freeway at 100 kilometres an hour, there's not a whole lot of wind noise. So clearly a lot of effort has been put into making sure this car is comfortable. The suspension is also fairly plush over bigger bumps and things like speed humps, where you can feel there's a fair bit of compliance in there. But once you hit sharper bumps and things like road joins, it sort of jolts through those tyres. It's not too comfortable doing that sort of stuff. But there's one thing we need to point out with this car, and that is that this suspension tune is not what we're going to get in Australia. Kia unleashes its own engineers on cars like the EV9, and the idea is to tailor it to our taste, to our roads, make sure it's better suited to what Australians are used to. So that bit, to some extent, is a bit up in the air.
The Kia EV9 is a car that ticks a lot of boxes for larger families. There's loads of space, the latest tech, and it delivers on driving manners. Perhaps the best bit is that it can set up to 7 people and do it in relative comfort. For that reason alone, it could be a game changer in the electric car space.
The EV9 packs plenty in, but it also comes with a sizable price tag. Now, for some people with this sort of budget, that could be tough to swallow. But if they're prepared to look past that and consider the core car, they're going to find something that loads in heaps of tech, space and decent driving promise. Now, of course, this is our first taste test with the EV9. We're going to be doing a whole lot more with it late in 2023 when it lands in Australia.